Hey Joe, how are you?
Hey Matt, doing great.
Hey, look, we look like twinsies. I
I
didn't know
know,
that
I
was
didn't
a
even get the
requirement in the
memo.
t-shirt. I might have to go change my shirt now.
No, don't be offended.
Think you're now going to have to give away some of those t-shirts.
Hey, Jeff gave us a great idea. We should give out t-shirts, Joe.
That's a great idea.
The extra sending thing, though, we'd have to send it out. So. All right, so people are populating in. Yeah, we got about 2 minutes before. So the folks that just joined, if you click on the chat, you'll see that there's a link to XLeap. That's where we will be interacting with. So go ahead and join XLeap. You will see that we're already starting to have interaction on who's here and who's driving what universities that they're at and things like that. So go ahead and start to put some info in there, okay?
There we go. I'm recognizing names now.
All right, good. Call them out, Jeff. Good.
Well, Sandra's here. Sandra Wellingoff, Jack Baruti. Just here's some other ones, but
We got a lot of people from different places. Seattle to Florida to Des Moines, Wayne, New Jersey, Oshkosh.
I want to know who's from Cleveland.
I wonder who's from Cleveland. Guardian fans over there.
I'm from Cleveland. Hi, everybody.
Hi, I'm originally from Cleveland.
All right.
Worked at Cleveland State for a number of years and went to
That's
school
where
there.
I am.
You are.
That's right.
I was in institutional research for a while and in the sociology department for a while, long before you were born.
I don't know. This dark room makes me a lot younger than I look.
So, hey, Lynn, it looks like you said you click on the enter button and you should be able to get in. So I'm gonna start soon. So this is what we're gonna do really quick. If you just click on the chat feature, you will see that there is a XLeap link there. Go ahead and click on it because that's where the interaction is going to be. That's where we will have all of our communications going back and forth. So I'd love for you all to be a part of that. And then we'll start in like a minute and then we'll get going. Hey, Joe, are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Jeff, are you ready?
as ready as I'm ever going to be, Matt.
All right. Well, we like to keep things on time and we got 90 minutes. So first of all, I want to say I'm really excited about this topic. When Jeff and I started to have some conversations, we were thinking about, what can we do together? And this topic of modernizing the MBA started to come up. And there's many reasons, right? We are, society is changing right in front of us. The market is changing right in front of us. Technology is changing right in front of us. Expectations are changing right in front of us. And yet, a lot of times we and ourselves in higher ed isn't changing. And so we thought, what better exercise to go into probably the more prestigious programs of most universities and colleges, and let's have a discussion about how to make it even more modern or more effective in that dialogue, right? So that's where we're really going here. So I want to just do some guidelines and put things in place here. We got 90 minutes, and most people will think 90 minutes is a long time. In the end of this, you'll realize we probably didn't have enough time. If you're expecting, a scripted webinar, if you're expecting a sales pitch on the latest and greatest software that's going to resolve your problem, if you're looking for a one-way conversation, you could probably leave today because we're not going to do any of that. That's not the way that interactions are done. We basically believe your voice matters. And what we want out of this is some really good interactions and bring really amazing thought leaders from market to allow us to have a conversation around a lot of different things. So we're not going to push any technology. This is really about us having real thoughtful leadership discussions. There's 3 ways that you can interact. One, I'm going to encourage all of you to turn on your cameras, be a part of the interaction. If you're not camera ready, totally fine. You can jump on the stage. We have a live stage all the time. If you see a conversation happening, you want to put in a little bit of an input, go ahead and just either raise your hand or even if there's a break, you can step in and have a conversation with us at any point in time. There is a chat feature, and usually the chat blows up, meaning there is so much dialogue in the chat that we actually assign what we call a voice of the chat. And today is John Thompson Haas, we call him JTH, will be the voice of the chat. So some people don't like to talk. Some people just want to put a little bit of text and have a little bit of an opinion. We want you to have the ability to do that. So that's a second way. The third way is this X-Leap feature that we use. It is probably the most interactive thing you're going to probably use in the next couple of weeks because it is so engaging in the way that we have a conversation. So I'll stop there, and I'm going to introduce my co-host, Joe Abraham, who is a partner at Beyond with us, and he and I usually do this sessions together. And then we have Jeff. Jeff, how do you say your last name? Is it Bignick?
It's easier, Pagonic.
Okay.
Like beyond, Begon,
Okay, good. So really quick, why don't, Joe, give a little bit of intro, and then I'm going to ask Jeff to do a little bit of intro. And for a lot of people that aren't familiar with the MBA Roundtable, this would be a good opportunity, Jeff, for you to speak to it and, even talk about your conference and things like that. That'd be something that would be really good here. So Joe, go ahead first, and then we'll start from there.
Great. Hello, everyone. Looking forward to just being part of this conversation with you. What I'm going to do my best is to, as you bubble up ideas and conversations and topics, I'll be trying my best to capture that, to recap it to you 2 or 3 times during the session, because the conversation could go a lot of different directions today. I'll do my best to take some of the highlights to bring it back, because sometimes that gets us back from multiple paths into kind of a straight line. So that'll be my job, be a recap guy, and to ask some good questions, and also look for any of you who've raised your hand. So I'll kind of be monitoring for that to call you up on the stage as well. So Jeff, over to you.
Great. Well, thanks, everybody. Great to be here. Jeff Pagonic here with the MBA Roundtable. For those of you who don't know us, we're an association of business schools that focuses on curriculum design and innovation. So we are primarily North America, but do have international members, and really thrilled to see a global representation here with that. We were lucky enough to have Matt present at one of our conferences back in 2019. And so I've been, following Matt on LinkedIn, and these things started to pop up, and I really enjoyed these really active discussions, and we kept on in touch, and I kept on saying, maybe we should do something together. But our goal is really to help our members and help the industry at large really take on these challenges that are being faced and really meeting the needs of the student learners, their employers, and the schools. We're all in this massive space of transformation and innovation, and we need to work together to make sure that we all succeed in this process. So we're here to do this, bubble up some ideas. So it's great to see a lot of familiar faces on the participant list. So I might shout some out and say like, hey, I want to hear from you, but we don't want to really do too many cold calling, right? It'll all happen by itself. So I'm going to let you guys take it over. You guys are the experts, and I'm going to just chip in as I can, or things that I think are interesting as well. So Joe, I might say, hey, I see this as well. So
that's perfect.
And I just wanted to say, as the voice of the chat here, you'll see that in the chat I am posting the link to the X-Leap as people come in. One of the features, shall we say, of Zoom is that you only see the chat after you join. So as people join, you'll see the X-Leap link come up on a regular basis. If you'll click in that will log you into X-Leap, and that is the want to fully experience this ThinkSpace, that really is the best thing to do. So that's my bit of housekeeping. Welcome, everybody.
Yeah, and right now we have about 83 people in Zoom. We have about 50 people in XLeap. You will notice that you want to be in XLeap because that's where the interaction's happening. So you'll see that in the XLeap, you will see the roles that are here. We have lecturers to full professors, general managers, SVP of customer success. So we have both industry, we have students, we have higher ed folks. We have a variety of different institutions in here, from Northeastern University to University of Arizona Global Campus, you name it. There's a lot here, so that's kind of cool. And then there's roles that are chairs and associate professors and things like that. So, and then people that live in all over the place. My God, we have people globally here as well as all over the country. So I'm hoping you all will go in there and fill that out. I'm going to move you to the first question right off the bat. So we're gonna basically drive this ThinkSpace. It is going to be interactive. We want you to speak and chat. We're going to go through this agenda so that you understand. We're going to lay the landscape out so everyone understands what the landscape looks like. There's some questions built on around the landscape question. Then we're going to move to a focal point. What are the challenges? What's the differentiators in our market? What's the curriculum looking like? And then we'll finalize that with imagining the future. Like what does an MBA program look like in the future? And we're going to have that discussion. And then the last session is just, we love feedback and we want to make these things as interactive as possible and give you the voice to even make us adjust things that we need to do. So, all right. So let's go right off the bat. For the 63 people in here, welcome. I'm going to collect all of you guys and I'm going to move you into what we call the modern expectations. So I'm going to ask you all this question. What are the modern expectations of today's students? And you will see that there is a plus button on your XLeap for this question. Hit that and hit the comment. For the veterans who are always in our ThinkSpaces, go ahead and start to put your answers in, you know it. The question is, what are modern expectations of today's students? You notice we didn't put of graduate students, we just said students, because students could be different people at different times in their lives, and we put that in here. So the thing that I will also show you is that there is something called vote ups. So before you go and answer it, what I'd like for you to do is look and see if your colleagues have answered it similar to you. So instead of typing it in, go ahead and take your mouse, take one of the green dots and move it into an answer that you agree with. What we do here is we bubble it up. And so when you bubble up an idea, those come up for the discussions that we really want to have and talking points that we go through that process. Awesome. I see flexibility moving right up on top right away. So anyone having issues getting an XLeap? Okay.
We've got fast typers in this group. It's hard to keep up.
Oh, great. Yeah, when you have 90 people, you know, giving ideas, things move really quick. That's why the vote ups are really important. And Joe and others, if you're seeing things, you know, feel free to chime in. The flexibility one is all over the place. So, and I'd love to understand what flexibility means in today's world. Was someone going to say something?
Yes, I actually did not just type flexibility. I said flexibility of time and place.
Time and place.
Meaning
Okay.
most adult learners in the MBA program now want to be in the airplane traveling to Japan and be in class. So that, to a reasonable extent, would help them to achieve their graduate educational needs.
Right. Joe, what are you seeing?
Your expectations.
So far, so good. Let's give it maybe another 2 minutes so everyone can scan through all the answers, see if they want to use up some of their votes, because your votes will really matter here when Matt shuffles the deck, and all the top items will end up at the top of the list. And then that'll, and hopefully you'll be ready for some discussion around it. So we'll give you maybe a minute of silence so you can just focus on some of those answers, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, I do see co-curriculum programming and supplement to classroom learning beginning to take off down there in the 40s.
You'll see that I'm moving some of the flexibilities together. So I saw a lot of that flexibility being repeated. So I'm putting them all together.
Yep. The other one that I see that's an interesting comment is practical help to make a difference with skills learned from an MBA curriculum. And that's gotten 3 votes. I thought that was a very interesting comment as well.
All right.
I see we, yeah, go ahead and
27?
shuffle the deck, Matt.
Yeah.
Let's see what it comes out to.
All right. So you guys are going to see our first vote up. So flexibility, of course, came up on top. There's 28 of you all that agreed with that. Anytime, any place. Customizing the learner journey, that's really important. Value, social connection, experiential learning, network opportunities, that's in the tens.
It's a lot about the how, not about the what yet.
Yeah, not a lot about the what yet. And I think it could be that the next couple questions may give us the what, but.
Although as I'm reading these, I'm reading them as good answers to the question, what are the modern expectations of today's students? They're expecting flexibility, they're expecting value, they're expecting social connection, networking opportunities, getting that job. But you're right, Matt, in the next couple of questions, we may be able to unpack a little further, but it's interesting. We can work our way backwards from the 9 and get to a couple of the bigger ones. Getting a well-paying job with the degree, that certainly may be an expectation of today's students. It'd be interesting to find out, for those of you that are actively engaged in providing the MBA programs, are you finding that to be the case going forward, or is that a historical expectation, or is that still a very key expectation today? And are we able to deliver that higher paying job after their MBA? It'd be interesting to just hear some thoughts on what you're seeing and hearing at your institutions.
May I follow up that question? Because one discussion that I'm having as I'm redesigning an MBA program is how important is the accreditation? I mean, if we look at the space right now, there are a lot of competitors coming from like technology company, right? We have LinkedIn, we have a lot of, let's say, new tech companies that provide courses, but they do not provide an MBA degree. So if we're talking about the modern MBA, the MBA of the future, the question, I think we should also kind of think, what is the importance now of receiving that degree?
So we're going to get to that question next. So you're going to see that in a second. So let's just hold off on that. I love the fact you're thinking that way. It's going to go right into our next question. When we think about flexibility, is the current MBA not flexible, or has it morphed? Have you started to become more flexible with the model, especially coming out of COVID and things like that? Are you more flexible now than you've been before, or you're flexible, but not as flexible as what you think expectations are being asked of? Any thoughts there?
I also wonder the degree of flexibility. So to me, one of the aspects that I think about in flexibility in any credentialed program is there something that I can take out of it along my journey that I can immediately apply into the workplace? So I'm probably in a lot of instances already working if I'm working on my MBA. And so there might be a competency or a skill set that's not a full course, but it's part of that leads to a credential or a competency that this person has this skill in being able to do this.
Yeah. You know, Art, when you wear a green shirt and a green screen, you go invisible in a lot of ways, just an FYI. Hey,
Well, that's probably better.
so really quick, Ken, I see your hand raised and you laughed at my joke, so you certainly can go next.
Yeah, thanks. You know, we have a traditional kind of working adult based MBA, and I am trying to, with all honesty, copycat Boston University's new online MBA, because of the idea of multiple faculty in a course topically based, so you can move different concepts and modern concepts in and out. But I am finding that no, this is the resistance, especially in the online space. We are still content focused. It just came out of ICAM a couple of weeks ago, and the president of AACSB, she kicked off the meeting by saying everything we offer content-wise in our business schools is freely available on YouTube. She really threw down the gauntlet. And so I really think there's a lack of flexibility. There's safety there because we have some control. We're not reactive. We're not meeting the things that are in that platform about flexibility, which I think is more than just when we offer and how we offer classes. It's flexibility in what we discuss. I mean, if you're not rolling out supply chain conversations and inflation conversations right now, I would argue that you couldn't say you're flexible.
Yeah. I think Keel had mentioned in chat, you know, a seat-based degree program is by its nature not flexible. Yeah. So that's a challenging thing to process for everyone.
I see. I see Andre is up. Andre, go ahead. Akin, you already spoke. So let me just get Andre first, and then I'll come back to you.
Good evening from Cape Town, South Africa. I work for a company called Business Education Design. We've been designing learning solutions for business education and exporting them around the world. Our proud history goes into places like Wharton, places like the University of Cape Town in South Africa, Strathmore Business School. We've even had a lot of work driving into Wharton from China. What we've learned is the following, is that social engagement is key to driving learning and change. And the people that tell us the content no longer matters, say to us, we want to see how you can bring about real transformation in the lives of the people we're engaging with. Show me how you can turn them into champions of change so that when they leave my MBA program, they can go to have a real impact in the world and make the world better. I'll stop there.
Sounds good. Sounds good. I love the passion. And I think social engagement is something that most schools struggle with. They go with an old model of engagement, whereas, you know, our kids are coming in from the gaming world where engagement is natural, right? And yet we think turning on a Zoom and someone lecturing is how we should be educated. And that is something that I think most schools and the schools that start to really think through this are going to be able to bubble up in a much different way if they think through that manner. Akin, I'm going to let you go really quick. I'm going to move everyone to the next question. So while you're talking, I'm going to move everyone over, okay? Go ahead.
Question I want to ask is about customization of learning journey. What do we mean by that? That number two. Beyond the literary meaning, I want to understand what that means. Customization of learning journey. What does that mean, and how that can be applied to MBA program?
So, you know, I didn't write that, but I kind of understand what it is. Is the person that wrote it, do you want to step in and maybe articulate it? If not, I'll do my best to articulate it.
Hi, my name is Jan. I'm with the University of Iowa. I dropped that one in there. I think it could mean more than one thing, right? But where I was coming from is part of it's probably flexibility too. It's like, how is the learner able to pick and choose how and when they learn? So I think that's a piece of it. I also think that not unlike the way many of us as consumers have become more involved in the products that we buy, and we expect the ability to customize our products. I'm thinking about Nike shoes or other clothing from a retail. I think there is an expectation that learners can take the learning at the time when they need it, maybe in the chunk or the piece or the component at the time they need it. And they do, I'm tagging on to someone else's response here, but they expect value, right? Even if they're taking maybe a small chunk at a time, they're still looking to see value in that. So that's a couple places my head was at when I dropped that one in there.
Yeah.
Mark also had his hand up just before we move out.
Go ahead, Mark.
Hi, hello everybody. The conversation about content is always interesting because we talk about whether content is important or not. And of course it is, but it isn't so much whether content is important as what are we missing by over focusing on content. And content is specific to a discipline, but it's the process objectives that we talk about in our promotional materials: decision making, soft skills, critical thinking, creative writing, oral presentation skills. Those are the skills that map across disciplines and are in some ways actually more important. So it isn't so much the fact that content is important or not important. Of course it is. It's that we tend to underestimate or underemphasize the importance of process skills in our curriculum.
Hey, Mark, it's our third question. You just answered it for us. So we're gonna get to that also. So you all are thinking the same kind of questions. Jeff and I and Gabrielle, when we designed this, we went through this exercise, and it's interesting that you all are leading right to it. So really quick, I've already moved you all to the next question, which is, what is the purpose of today's MBA? What's the purpose of it? And I want you to be really thoughtful, because you'll see that I've added a couple other sticky dots, because I want you to tell me, articulate the value, be specific on it, and then drop either it's a value to a student, it's a value to the institution, or it's a value to the industry. So I want you to think through that a little bit. Just to recap the previous question, so some of what I think, this flexibility, I think content focused, social engagement, customized pathways, unbundling is what I would say the recap. If you have never been in our ThinkSpaces before, we're recording this. We'll give you access to all of this. We run a report right after this. We will provide that to anybody who wants it. This content is yours. You're crowdsourcing it with us, and we believe that you should be able to have this access to this information. All of this is anonymous, so be opinionated.
And Matt, I think we want to talk about that. This next ThinkSpace is about today's MBA, the current model, right?
Yeah. Well, it could be both, Jeff. If you think about it, like, it could be that what are we doing today well, and what do we have to do for the future could be the purpose of an MBA too. I see that you all are liking the dots. It's kind of cool. It's like a Christmas tree with ornaments. So I'll give you a minute or two, because people like to not have me talk. So. A lot of familiar faces in the house. Welcome, everyone. Jim, I see Alex is in the house, and both of you guys are from like Oregon. It's kind of cool. You guys all wear Nike gear everywhere you go. I want a duck shirt anyways, Jim, so we'll have to work that out. Trade. All right. Everyone had enough time to put their thoughts in, vote up their friends, and then categorize what they are? I'll give you another minute or two.
It was interesting, Matt, because I started thinking about the 3 categories also when I started answering the questions, and it sort of changed my answers.
Interesting. Why did it change, Jeff?
Well, I realized there weren't a lot of comments about institution. What's the purpose of the MBA to the institution? I don't think we often think about that.
The reason you have to think about it, so when we run these ThinkSpaces, and we do this in our consulting ecosystem, everyone thinks you're just messaging out, right? Sometimes you have to message in. In order for people to believe what you're offering out, you have to message internally also. So there is sometimes a branding and exercise that has to be internal, but then there is also what does this program mean to this institution? And how do we use that to brand ourselves as a thought leader in a certain industry or things like that? So
it's always a fraught discussion within an institution, the role of the business school. And I'm sure everybody in the business school can tell their stories about that.
So go ahead and use your vote ups really quick, because that's what I'm going to sort first. And then I'm going to sort by student, institution, and industry in a quick way. So. All right, 10 seconds, and I'll do the vote up. Okay. Joe, you want to take this one? What the top ones are?
Yeah, we're just looking through to help build thinkers who make the critical decisions to move business and society forward. That's fantastic, very aspirational. Is there some element of that is not being delivered on? Or do you feel that your program or programs you're aware of are really hitting it out of the park in this one area? If that's the main purpose of today's MBA, how are we doing as a group of MBA providers? And for those of you that are students right now or currently in programs, it'd be great to hear from you. Would you have listed this as one of the main reasons you are in an MBA and one of the main outcomes you're getting out of it already or have gotten, for those of you that have already been through the program?
I see Zoe with her hand up. Go ahead, Zoe.
Yeah, we're engaged in a refresh right now where we've spent a lot of time with our external key stakeholders and what they're looking for. And some of the key things that have come across is much of the more conceptual and relational skills are really in high demand, and a feeling that students are not adequately prepared. So, analytical, being able to make hard choices and hard decisions and balance lots of competing demands from various constituencies, and very importantly, navigate uncertainty and ambiguity, that there's not, clear cut answers. And that's coming from our employers even more strongly than our students. And I would say it ties back to the comments, the discussion we were having earlier about the real inertia that we have with being very content and disciplinary focused, as opposed to, somebody else talked about the online MBA at Boston University. We've looked at them as a model as well, where it's very problem focused, and you have that ability to see the complexity and the system dynamic associated with the really hard problems that students need to solve in businesses and society as a whole. And I don't think we're doing well at serving our students and ultimately institutions external to us in society in training our students adequately.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if any of you have follow-up thoughts to play off of what Zoe just said, because I would, looking from the outside in, I would think that is part of the rub, because if I'm an educator, if I'm a professor, I want to provide the content. There's knowledge I need to transfer to these students' minds, yet there's this whole practicum side of things of giving them all these critical thinking, problem solving, entrepreneurial mindset infused at the same time. So how do you accomplish it all in such a crunched amount of time while also offering flexibility, while also offering, you know, all that? That's kind of where the rubber starts to hit the road. And I'm not sure if some of you had to struggle through that or work through that. Tim, can we call on you to kind of pick up the conversation where Zoe left off?
Sure. So, experience I can communicate here would be, in addition to content, when I think back through my MBA experience, there were certainly classes that and experiences that were more Socratic in nature, that I think tied together the element of content with thinking. So, having content and being, tested on content and learning content is one thing, but actually having real-time involved discussions around, solving problems that tie into the items being discussed, I think really, hit home more, more solidly than just, being tested on content and getting a passing grade.
Yeah, I think Ken in our chat just used the term faculty as thought partners to the student. That's a really interesting concept. I've never heard it that way, but it sounds interesting and intriguing. Jessica, you want to pick up where we left off?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks. I'm glad to be here again. So my background is in higher ed, more on the student service side, but I've also gone through an MBA program and worked with many who do have MBAs and some who do not as well. And I think the question, I guess, that came to mind is where are our students getting their experience at this point? Whereas we're creating book, like I'll say, quote unquote, book content or in-course or online content, how are we actually translating that into an experience where you can kind of take that into your real world? I think of, this is just an example, I started a certification course where each course or each section was like 2 weeks long, driven flexibility, of course, by when you could take it, but I could actually take something I learned that evening to my job the next day versus something that lasts a semester. And you're like, oh, well, maybe I remember what I learned in the first week of the term. So I'm kind of thinking of it as in a book smarts versus street smarts, where are we able to tag in that experience where someone can actually take that? Because in my experience, that's where you are able to add value in making an impact with society and the institution or the organization.
Yeah, perfect. George, your thoughts?
Similarly, what I've found is that I'm getting young clients who have the MBA but don't have the application experience. And so then I'm trying to help them connect their content that they learned in their MBA, or actually even physicians applying it in their spaces, not just technical experience, but actual social interactions, working with other people. And they do have team activities during the MBA. And so that gets at some of it, but it's not that focused assistance or partnership that you might get in an organized program. And so now I'm dealing with it after the person gets the MBA.
So this may come back to one of the questions we'll be asking later is, let's vision the future MBA. So some of these things, a few of you are identifying, may hold on to that thought of, okay, what could it look like if it was different? Michael and then Andre.
Yeah, I'll be quick. Maybe for that next question, Joe, on the future, when Zoe was speaking about reaching out to external stakeholders outside of the higher ed space, I'd love to hear more how their institution is going about that, or maybe from others in the group. How are they going about that? Are there polls? Are you actually looking to go out and meet them, in different settings to get to know them a little bit and get more engaged opportunities to visit all this kind of stuff? So I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah. So if any of you are having success with that or have already kind of pioneered that, please have some thoughts ready when we get to that question about the future, because it sounds like many of the schools here would benefit from that. Really quick to Andre and then back to Matt to keep to share any thoughts you're seeing, Matt, from the thing. Andre?
I didn't catch the name of the person who spoke just before Michael. Was it George?
Yes.
George, we work with business schools, but more importantly with corporates who hire these MBAs. And the corporates are saying to us, these folks have got very good knowledge. They've cut some skill, but we're seeing some real attitude problems in some of these guys. And they don't fit the talent criteria we set for the executives we're hiring. So I'm asking them, what do you mean they don't fit the talent criteria and they don't fit the attitude? Because they've got the skill or some skill, they've got some knowledge. What do you mean? And the feedback they've been giving us, I typed it in the chat, was, Andre, help us to turn these people, these executives, into transformation designers, to pathway creators, people who can lead complexity and assist us to ask the right questions in the VUCA times, but importantly, to help us generate the answers through consensus, correct and confident and correct architectural practices. And you know, this value creator, this transformation creator, this guide on the side is the type of energy and feedback we're getting. And we built some stuff. I call it force field. And we've been testing this now across Africa and in the US. And it's starting to work. And I'm about to license it because I can now do it digitally like the Oaks are doing it. But much like what I see Matt and Joe doing on the Zoom call, running this X-Leap thing, they're looking for consultants who can answer the future, who can bring about the answers of the future, much like the guys are doing right here. So, I must congratulate you because you're asking us questions and you're giving us the answer by leading us through the process.
Ding, 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 ding. We're going to get you a Starbucks gift card for promoting us, but no, just kidding. We don't.
There's one. I'm sorry.
So go ahead.
No, just finish your comment. Then I wanted to highlight something that somebody said in chat. Please,
All
sorry.
right, I'm looking at this, and I did. If you notice, in the background, I was sorting between industry, I was sorting between institution, and then students, and seeing the answers move up and down. Right. So industry is really about, I need value from my folks, on the ground. Like, as a partner at Deloitte, I can get an MBA person, but if they don't have critical thinking and critical reasoning and empathy and all the things I need a human to be humans for, it doesn't matter if they have an MBA or not have any degree at all, right? They have to be able to apply it. In my office right here, we have a design center of graphic designers. So when we get them and they just know how to use Adobe and all these things, that's great. They can't apply it to a brand. They don't understand how the messaging works. We have to be able to create that experience. Schools have to bring those in, because all the schools are doing right now is showing us, hey, this is how a skill is done. Go ahead and apply that skill. But we never associate it to the conversations of what does it mean to make real impact to a school or and I consult universities, so I said school, but into a corporations and things like that. I think that is what I think we have to really understand, is that education has to be more than just earning a grade. It has to be more than I just passed and got an A. It has to be, how does what I just learned apply to the passions that I want to drive the passions of that company that I want to go work for? And that's something that I think is really pushing. I'm going to move quickly. JTH, go ahead and do it. I'm going to move you all to the next question just to keep us on track. Okay. So.
Well, I just wanted to, Frances Fons has, made a comment in the chat here about her MBA that part of that was transforming design by business architecture principles. And her comment was, it would be great if other schools started incorporating that in their structure. And I just wanted to book that for the what does MBA look like in the future. And Matt, what you just talked about is what the true engagement is. That was part of number one, where you're really engaging with the student to do all of those things and not just teach a skill.
Yeah.
I'm going to just jump in real quickly too, just to go with Francis. We partnered with the Business Architectural Guild to do a study on, are we really teaching strategy or are we actually teaching strategy execution? So people, how do you really put the strategy into place? And we found out that wasn't happening. So it was a really good partnership with the Architecture Guild. So thanks, Francis, for bringing that up.
As you noticed, we have somewhat of a system. So we see people have raised hands. We like to be very equal opportunity and letting everyone get in their voice. So you'll see that we go in and out. So don't ever take offense. We're just trying to moderate the conversation as best as possible so that everyone's voice matters in the discussion. And we love everyone's enthusiasm. So thank you. I really went to the next question, and really it talks about what are the competency and skills of a good MBA program that it instills, right? What is it that a good program instills in students? So this goes to what maybe industry wants, right? And so don't just say organization, leadership, critical thinking, be very specific, because part of the exercise we're doing here is we're creating your brand value to market. Because we got to understand, and we're going to go through the next session in Focal where we talk about differentiators in your program and things like that. So go ahead and do this exercise. I did see someone's hand raised. Go ahead. Yeah. Do you want to go, or was that another hand raised?
Okay. I just want to put this in a context. I see this issue going to Andre's point. I see this issue in a very classic input-output system approach. Most MBA programs still are traditional in their admission requirements. What they are going for are very high GPA students that can pass tests or exams like GRE, GMAT. When you bring those set of people, if those are the only people you bring in, or most people you bring in, they are going to be skillful, not necessarily having the kind of soft skills that these companies are asking for. So my question is, and I want to hear the take. I know many programs are moving away from this admission requirement of GMAT, GRE, and so on. But what is your take on that? Well, I mean, I like to see an admission requirement where are you a student union class president? So are you a person before coming into the MBA program as opposed to 3.75 GPA, so to speak? What's your take on that?
Yeah, so if I were to apply to an MBA school and I showed you my transcripts and I showed you my grades and I showed you all this stuff, I wouldn't get in. But yet, been a partner at Deloitte, ran a consulting firm that, brings in millions of dollars. Like, the reality of it is I wasn't taught the way I needed to be taught. And so my grades were impacted by it. So a lot of the things that I do now is to really address, we live in very much an exclusive mindset in our admissions process. And we put barriers in front of students that we believe that, oh, you have to have a GPA of this, you have to have a grade of this, you need to have done this. And the reality of it is we're missing amazing critical thinking people whose their skills are maybe not in text. It may not be in writing, but man, they can lead. And you're seeing that in market. You see this in the startup ecosystem. A lot of ways. I'll be the first example. I probably can't get into the MBAs, but it's funny because I've written so many MBA recommendations from my consultants who are going to the top 10 MBA schools, right? So it's just funny that I can give you a recommendation, but I can't get into your school. And it's just something that it's a little chip on my shoulder. I hold it very strongly that I'd probably get rejected, but I also want to make programs really effective for many people. So that was my soapbox. I see the questions up here.
Yeah, and Matt, I would just add that also some schools have really tried to open the doors, but they've opened the doors but haven't prepared the rest of the system inside their institution to make those students successful. So it's got to be a really holistic change within the culture of an organization.
And it's not even the MBA. Like that's just an example, right? It's everywhere in higher ed. We live in this elite, if you have to earn something to get in here. And the thing about the kids that are just have a disadvantage, and we're putting barriers in front of them that they never will be able to leap over. And that's the kind of questions that we have to recognize is out there in market, right? So.
And one thing, Matt, that Lolita pointed out, I think she's obviously in the admissions process somewhere, because she says she tries her best to look at her students as holistically as possible. They even submit a video interview. And sometimes that video interview has been influential in accepting the student, or maybe even a high GPA student not getting invited, right? So everyone's trying something new, but I think the more fresh ideas we can present or share even here would be great. If some of you are using some other tools and resources to select that right student, please do share it here, because I'm sure others will benefit from it. You could just put it in chat or something like that.
Two things that came up in chat that I think tie into this a little bit is, first of all, Carolyn's talked about Carolyn Tuberville, and I hope I got the name right. Talks about what we should also be teaching is those negotiation, active listening, consensus skills, conflict management. Those are the things that are making the difference for students when they get out there, which plays into what John Rainford has also said in the chat, that even though his experience is a 90% industry and he's taught in entrepreneurship in MBAs, but there's still a real disconnect between what's happening in the academic world and what the need is in the corporate world, and that need to connect the dots.
I did sort really quick because we're going to have to move. We have a lot of questions still left. We have like 45 minutes. So like I said, this 90 minutes is going to go quick. Joe, any thoughts on this, or Jeff, any thoughts on what bubbled up to the top?
Jeff, your thoughts?
I was looking at the chat. Let me. No, it is though. It's we're we think of our curriculum as accounting, finance, marketing, and then you look at what we say we want here are these really skills, these challenging, complex problem-solving skills. So it is a structural challenge to take from that model to doing this well across all these sort of different functional areas. So I left when I got my MBA, I thought I was just going to become a marketing expert. That's how I thought of it. And now you think of it, it's changed a lot of what the market expects of us too. So it's a.
I'd be curious to know how many folks with their MBA degrees are working in the degree field that they chose their MBA in.
Interesting.
Yeah. We should have put that as a survey question somewhere, but we didn't.
I drop in tidbits, Alex. It's nothing of value until it mean it.
You always come late and you throw these things in, and then you make us look like we didn't think about the ThinkSpace.
I rarely meet people who are doing the thing that they got their undergraduate or the graduate degree in. The world just changes so fast that by the time you have a degree, what you've got that degree in may or may not be there, or the industry that you're working in now didn't exist when you got it.
Yeah, I say this, my daughter is at Baylor when she was a freshman at Baylor, and she asked me, what major should I, and I'm in higher ed. And I said to her, I don't really care what major you become. Like, it doesn't matter. Really what matters is you have to pick a major that you're going to wake up every morning and want to go and hang out with people that like that major, and you're going to have to network with them. And you got to learn to learn. You got to learn to have challenges. You have all these things around a major. Major is just the topic that you're interested in. You have to pick that major that allows you to allow for you to become curious, that teaches you how to learn, how to apply the different skills that that program is instilling in her. Now she's in this entrepreneurial and marketing program, and that's what they're giving her. They're giving her exposure to creating a business, and they're applying it. So I think it's something that most universities and colleges have to really focus on it is, the majors are just what people are interested in. How do you apply that so they learn how to learn and learn how to absorb and everything else that comes with it? Because I always tell my kids, don't box yourself into your major. I'm a criminal justice major and I design student systems all over the country. I consult universities all over the country and I'm a criminal justice major, so it's my experiences that from my criminal justice, and I'm a proud criminal justice major, that has taught me that how I should think, critical thinking, and all that comes from my major. So,
Matt, is the next question about the challenges ahead?
Yep. You want me to go there?
Yeah, let's go there, because I think my sense of the group here is that everyone agrees that there's some things that are going really well and some things that need to transform, right? What's in the way? What are the challenges facing MBA schools today? And you can think of it from the perspective of those sticky dots that you see: structure issues, curriculum issues, culture issues, technology issues, or you could speak more to what's in the way of even some of the schools transforming what they do. We're supposed to be building transformational students, but are we transformational ourselves? And if not, what's in the way?
Yeah, and Ken asked that very similar question. We're saying all of these things, and we've said these things before. What's getting in the way for change, and why is change coming so slowly?
I had a chat with Dan Leclerc the other day. Dan heads up the Global Business School Network, GBSN. He operates out of Washington. And he was saying to me that a lot of the organizations, business schools that are members, are struggling with one thing. They can't change the culture and the conditioning of the system of global business schools, because when you arrive at these business schools, you either conform or they throw you out. But I found that to be quite an insightful comment, that the CEO of the Global Business School Network tells me that the business schools say, you conform to us, we condition you, you adapt to our culture because we are the gateway to the corporate world. And if you don't play by our rules, you don't get in. And I went, wow, because the corporates are saying, we don't want your MBAs no more. They don't fit the mold of the businesses we run.
All right, so continue to vote up these challenges. There's a lot here: outdated systems, inadequate resources, attracting and enrolling international students is here. Go ahead and vote up, and then after you vote up, then place the stickies on, because the vote ups are the real important ones, because we want to see who is thinking alike. Hey, John, can you send Sachin the link, as he just put it on chat? So we got 30 minutes to cover about 3 more questions, and then so we got a lot to tackle. So go ahead and vote up. Yeah, go ahead.
Number 22. I don't know if I'm the only one that voted that up, but it's really good. It kind of covers much of what we're talking about.
The business world is changing too fast, and academia can't keep up, partly because how slow we move in layer of governance, competency, interest, and time. Yeah.
What is interesting, though, is, for some of us who've been in the business school space a long time, the speed of change that's going on in the last 3 or 4 years is really quite remarkable.
Yeah.
It's interesting that we still need it faster. So as is happening everywhere in the world, so that sort of not keeping up is a really interesting, because businesses aren't keeping up, right? Let's talk about supply chain. Businesses aren't keeping up either. It's a challenge we're facing.
So it's interesting, Jeff, when I did the keynote for the roundtable in 2019, the topic was future of work, right? That was my topic. Like, what is the work of the future? Who does that work? Where is that work done? How, remember that was a conversation. And at that time, my premise was you have to start teaching what the work of the future is. Because if you just design what you do today and teach to what you do today, you're gonna produce people that can do last year's work, when you really have to start producing people that could do the future work that's going to be there, the new technologies. And the reason is AI requires you to think differently, right? Because AI doesn't tell you to regurgitate the same thing that you did last year. AI tells you to create structural thinking, to design thoughts and insights and everything else. And that thought and insight may give you a different direction in your strategy. So when I talk about future of work, and the reason I'm pulling that up is, I don't know if schools are even able to move as fast as jobs of the future are going to produce out there, right?
Yeah,
So
that's
the
the
question.
Is
Should an MBA be by like a major, or should it be like tactical kind of elements that allow for the work of any sort coming up in the future, allow for people to have that kind of critical thinking mind to come in and be really powerful, as opposed to, I know this kind of methodology. Those methodologies may not apply in the world of work anymore in the future. So just a thought.
Yeah, Matt, one of the things I was thinking about, someone had made the comment earlier today about, hey, give it today, if there's not some conversation going on in the MBA class about inflation, let's say, we're missing the boat, so to speak. The question I have is, does faculty have the time and, let's say, freedom to adjust on the fly as these rapid things are happening, or are they kind of stuck to execute on a set of deliverables based on timelines? And so even though they would like to explore some of these conversations, there's just not enough time, or an unwillingness, or whatever it may be. But yeah, why are these students missing out on the opportunity to have some of these conversations if they're not happening? It'd just be interesting to hear if anyone has some thoughts, or if it's really what Andre said, which is there's one way MBA schools do it, and you either agree and fall in line or you don't.
Well, Joe, my thought, not being a part of an MBA program or anything, is that often in business, I find that younger people or people that have less experience, they don't even know about the cyclical nature of the markets, and how we've had downtimes in the late 80s, and how we had downtimes in the early 2000s, and 2001 and 2004 and 2009. They come into business and they don't understand that, it's just a cyclical process. It's not about inflation today. They need to know how to brace themselves. They need to know that we've been through this before, and then how do we react to it in the past? And I think those are the things that, the MBA program should be teaching more about the history of these cycles and how we get through them. And that's my just personal business experience.
I think there's three things. If anyone doesn't have any other opinion, I'll tell you what I think the three opinions are. I think people are really comfortable with status quo. Like this is comfortable. I come to my job and I do my job, and I offer up a program, and you know what? People will come in my seats, right? So the Ivies and the big states, it's easy. You just, you put out what you do, and people will come, right? There is an element of building new content is tough, right? I mean, even this ThinkSpace takes time. It isn't easy to even do a ThinkSpace. Think about a class where you're trying to manage accreditation issues, the dean's requirements, all those things. That's a second element. And then there's people that are just incumbents. Like, this is better for them if they just keep it this way. This goes back to Andre's point. Like, this is what it is. There's incumbents that doesn't want any of this change. And the only way higher ed will change is if external factors make a change. And that means employers say, we're not taking that because it doesn't need it. Then I think people will change. And then the other one is people have to be uncomfortable with where they are. They have to recognize that their baby is ugly, and that they have to figure out how to put a better, face in this space. I think you'll see that in all programs, not even just the MBA. I think schools, I think our learners, our students, my kids who will come in, they will have choices. And those choices are going to allow them to pick programs that are flexible and nimble. And all the things that we said in the beginning has to be there as we go forward. So if you're slow, if you're waiting for content, you're status quo, if you're waiting for the incumbents to take on, you will see there'll be a segment of students that'll go to something that meets their needs, which is more personalized as you go. So
I think you run into a lot of scenarios, Matt, where you're taught this content because they're comfortable teaching the way they've always taught it, right? I think some of the best teachers I've ever had were ones that knew from experience they're great storytellers, right? And they could tell a story, and that storyline comes from experience, right? Not just from the books that they've read, but by the practicum that they've practiced, right? What they've been doing and how they've been doing it. So some of the best teachers I've had within that space, and not just teachers, I'm not talking about just the MBA program or business programs or school in general, just some of the best teachers I've had in general have always been ones that have been great storytellers. That's how I've changed how I've taught, because if I teach from a book versus from experience, it resonates different. You can tell by the inflection in the way that you talk about it versus Bueller conversations, right? So it becomes that very, I don't want to say cynically, but the same idea comes back. I hear it all the time from I'm in the sales world as an advisor, and I see the salespeople all the time and how they talk to customers. Some of them go right from the PowerPoint presentations, reading page to page, right? And then some can just tell a story, and there's very different things on how that resonates with who you're talking to.
Yeah. I want to draw all of your attention. For those of you that haven't jumped, in the chat recently, jump in the chat and just look at the last few comments. There's some really interesting things going on there. I don't want you to miss. Renee, playing off of Matt's analogy of the baby, says she does degree audit, and there's some unpleasant stuff out there for sure. And I think Kelly shared what looks like a really great article. I'm looking forward to reading it, but just reading the link itself, the shift from pedigree-based hiring to skills-based hiring. That's the name of the article, at least in the link. So that should be an interesting read for everyone as well. So Matt, over to you to switch.
Jennifer,
switch over.
Jennifer also asked an interesting question here too, as to what the role of tenure is in sort of keeping people keeping ideas locked in.
Got it. So the question here is a really important question. How do you differentiate your program, right? Because I think a lot of times in the marketing and branding element, it looks the same, feels the same. You take the logo off of whatever brand messaging you have, it looks the same in a lot of ways, right? I would say the top tier schools, they can put whatever out and they're going to get their students, right? But it's these mid-market kind of schools that you got to be able to differentiate yourself. So what is it that you do to differentiate your program? And then go ahead and put the sticky. Is it a experience centric? Is it a program centric? Is it institution centric? Vote up first and then use the stickies. We're moving pretty good. We're moving quickly, so I apologize, but like I said, 90 minutes it comes by really fast, and you guys have been great through this process. Be specific. When we say flexible, what is it meaning to be flexible? If you're saying network, what does it mean to be be specific, because what I want to come out of this exercise is this a branding exercise for yourselves to say, how do we differentiate ourselves? If we all say we're flexible, that means the other school can say they're flexible. It's really not a differentiator for you. So a differentiator is when no one else can say that.
And Matt, I was just gonna, between the chat and this, language, the words to use and to see what people feel is important, what we think is important, are very different things. And so there's really good clues between the chat and the ThinkSpace about just language to use about what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I find it interesting.
So Jeff, I know you have a conference in the fall. what I think you should do is take this ThinkSpace, like take this topics, take the chat, and formulate some sessions, some working sessions in that conference, because I think you can pull a lot of really good discussions, because there's really good thought here. Now you just got to blend them together and start to have discussions that are micro elements of each of them, right? So.
Yeah, I think a couple of my my committee members, conference committee members, are on this session. They might have some homework with me.
Yeah.
Great. So make sure you vote up. And, you know, sometimes go to the bottom. You know, sometimes we always vote up on the first one that we see, but there's sometimes we recognize some people take some time to write and they're really thoughtful. They just happen to be in the latter numbers, right? So don't waste your vote ups on the first ones right away. Look through the whole thing and then vote up, and then we'll put the sticky dots through.
Yeah, and just as you're doing that, Lisa came in with, I thought, a good answer to the how does tenure play into this, and her comment was that pre-tenure also often doesn't have good incentives for folks to learn how to teach, and you may not learn how, if you ever do, or even begin to feel like you can risk until you get tenure. I thought that was an interesting point. Having been a college professor once myself, I lived that.
So we're the 20-minute mark. We got 20 minutes left, and we got 2 questions after this, differential questions. And so I want to make sure we get enough time for those next 2 questions, because those are really important ones. It really sets up, you know, some of the things you have to walk away from with. So.
The only thing I would point out here, Matt, is for those of you, as you're looking at some of these differentiators going, well, school A listed it, but it's also at school B, C, and D. This may be a good opportunity to say to your marketing communications group, hey, look, because we'll provide you all this data. You can share it with them and say, hey, look, this is what every other college thinks their differentiator is. We may need to go back to the drawing board a little bit and do some homework internally to find some true differentiators.
I think if you're seeing, if everyone is saying the same thing, you have to come up with something different that really differentiates you. And I think I think marketing is so broadly based that we never get to the, how does that impact that student? Like the student story, the journey of that student, right? I think there's a little bit of that goes here. So I'm going to sort really quick just in time. Any last votes?
And as you're sorting, Matt, you know, one observation and differentiation, it's not only just looking at what your marketing says, but what are your students and your alumni and the corporations around you saying? I've worked in schools that say, my strength is X, but nobody in that strength is getting hired. But in this thing over here that they don't think is very important, that's where all their students are getting hired. So that's what their differentiator should be. So look there as well.
You know, I heard somebody quote the 5 C's to me the other day, but it was a different 5C from his business school. It was here in Africa. He said, we are looking to build new civilizations, new communities, new cultures, new conditioning, and new conforming ways for the world. And I went, whoa, what are you saying? And he said to me, Andre, the difference between the linear thinking that's happened around the world and the exponential curve that is predominating in the world, that gap means that we have to create these new civilizations, communities, and cultures. And I went, oh. He said something else, which I find missing in a lot of business schools. He said, I'm going to have to make sure we teach MBA guys to build trust so that they can install trust in the systemic change in the civilizations, communities, and cultures. And I went, whoa. And he almost sounded like a spiritualist, like a guy from the hills of Tibet, talking about, hey, if we don't get back to the core truth of what the world is about and use the tools and technologies and AI and you name it to make this happen, he said, then I don't have a business school. But I'm telling you what people are telling me, because I'm trying to design for those requirements.
Yeah. Thank you, Andre. So let's just look through this really quick. So in here, we talk about exponential learning and working with clients as a differentiator. I think in that case, you have to say, how does your programs, make that different? Why is it there? Like that. So what I'm getting at is this exercise here, you probably have to dive a little bit deeper in the differentiation element of it, right? Networking. So the basically, in order to really market and brand well, if your competitor can say, I network with local businesses, it's not a differentiator. Because everyone can actually claim that. It's not a differentiator. As it's a value, we give you value by giving you network. It isn't a differentiator. So you got to think through, what is your network? Well, you know what? We're connected with Tesla. We're connected with Amazon. We work with their methodology. That becomes the differentiator. So I want you guys to understand the difference between making a statement that everyone else can take. It isn't a differentiator if your competitor can claim it, even if it's not true, because competitors will claim it even when it's not true. So that's something that I want us to make sure you recognize when you think about the differentiators. Be specific to what your institution can do differently. So, any thoughts? Joe, I'm gonna try to move us.
Yeah, let's jump to the next one, because this next question is the important one, if I remember it correctly.
Yeah. This is all Jeff. So if you don't like the question,
Yeah,
this is Jeff. Yeah. Jeff had a good time building this ThinkSpace with us. So the question here is, what are the curriculum changes that are required? Like, how does your curriculum need to change? And think about the differentiators that I just made a comment about. How do you become different than other people? And make sure you vote up, but then look at the other stickies that we put there. It's either content related, it's classroom experience, or it's delivery model, right? Sort them out that way at some point if you want to. I see number 20, it says listen from level 5, silent. Can someone articulate what that means? Anybody?
Yeah, I had a chat with Otto Schwammer the other day, and I had a chat with him and one of the gurus from India. And they were saying that until we can empty the mind and start almost like a CPU and reboot with new thinking based on what we've listened to.
Got it.
Until we can suspend what you know.
Got it. So what you're saying there, Andre, is in order to change a curriculum, you have to start from scratch. And so you have to have a clear mind before you're almost refreshing with a whole different model is what you're saying, right, Andre?
The guru said, not me. The guru said,
got it. All right.
we have to do more to teach people to unlearn than what we have to do to learn. He said, because it's our unlearning that's got us stuck in not creating the world the way we need to.
Got it. Okay. So go ahead and sort the rest. Vote up the rest, and then I'm going to vote. Then I'm going to sort really quick.
it's the fun or the challenge is getting to the how-tos now.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna vote. I'm gonna just sort really quick. I think just in respect of time, skill-based has to be a curriculum that's skill-based. Movement from the basic business disciplines, big picture coursework, adaptive and agile curriculum. I think this number 5 is probably the one we probably have to address. It goes back to my future of work kind of concept. Because the job of the future, the jobs that my kids will take on doesn't exist today. And we're gonna have to figure out how to teach that as you move forward, right? So, and it's more than just skills. Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, I'm going to steal you pitched our conference, but I'm going to pitch to the people here that if you're doing this, if you have the adaptive and agile curriculum, I want to know about it. So reach out to me and share it with me so we can talk about it and share it with everybody else. But we'd love to hear about it because it's hard to know what people are doing all over the world. So.
No, it's good answers. Good, good. All right. So any last thoughts? I'm going to move us to the next one, which is really about imagining the future, right? So this is what it really boils down to after all the things that we've gone through, right? We've figured out what a modern experience looks like, what the purpose of an MBA is, what are the competency and skills of a good MBA, and then what are the challenges, differentiators, and what are the curriculum, right? So imagining the future, let's go there. I'm going to open it up. So what do schools need to do differently in order to meet the challenging landscape? So think about the future, provide specific answers to transform your program, and then use the stickies to talk about how you would do that. Is it offering, delivery, partnerships, flexibility? And content. You notice we didn't put any vote ups because we wanted you to have content as another sticky here. So there you go. This has been great.
It's great to see so many people have stayed as long because giving an hour out of their day is hard enough, let alone 90 minutes. So.
Yeah, no, it's great.
Just a quick question, please. Will you send the recorded video to us?
Yeah, we will. If you're in the X Sleep and we put your email, we'll send it. And if you don't get it, just let us know and we'll make sure you get it. Okay.
Thank you very
much. Scott Galloway always appears somewhere in these discussions. I have to give him credit. Number 9.
Yeah, I mean, like Seth Godin, I follow Seth and Simon and everything else, right? So they're all looking at it differently, right? So there's some really good stuff.
It's interesting, Matt. I always see a lot of these companies are always pushing, like, here's the next book that you should read. Make sure you're reading the 5 dysfunctions. Make sure you're reading this. Make sure you read that. All these curriculum that programs are trying to push to go. Here's how it forms our culture and conversations. Those types of things. It's interesting that that's what these companies are trying to push into. Hey, have you learned this? Have you learned this other stuff that helps kind of, because it talk about culture is a lot of the big pieces of this, right? TED Talks, for example. I mean, I know it pops up here, Johan, you threw it up that it was on your screen, but we have that all the time where there's snippets, right? From, hey, did you pick this up from this? And it's part of that ingrained in that organizational structure. That's part of their mindset.
I'm intrigued by number 12. Consider incentivizing faculty with old mindsets to retire. Yeah, it's an option.
We
got to put everything on the table.
You see a lot of that actually with the universities right now. A lot of retirements happening, right? Early retirements, things like that. Big pushes towards that.
Yeah, Jan has her hand up as well, I think.
Thank you. I have seen true lifelong learning opportunities come across a couple times. I'd be really curious to understand more clearly what that means.
Hi, Jan. That's me, Michael. I'd be happy. I was just thinking about, as I was just sitting here thinking, listening, that's a strong buzzword, lifelong learning, lifelong learners. But you get a 4-year degree or an MBA, and then a lot of the contact you get is your alumni, hey, we got this going on, and get back, whatever. It made me think of Stanford D School of Stanford 2025. If you Google that, look that up. This is from several years ago. They talk about having a degree that's spread out, not just in 4 years, it's spread out over 8 years, say. You take classes, you go to work, you take classes, you go to work, and it's much more expanded in the career lifespan of the student. I'd love to share it. I'll share that with you, Jan. I think we're connected now on LinkedIn. I'll share it with you. It's a really good piece. There's a YouTube video, only goes about 12 minutes. They talk about jumping in the time machine, and they look back. They go ahead 50 years, and they look back at today, and they laugh at themselves and say, how could we think a 4-year degree and then say goodbye? It's going to prepare that person for life. It's really good.
Thank you.
I think Timothy has his hand up too. Tim?
Yeah, it wasn't my entry on the board, but just to add to that, when I was going through Emory's program back in 2010, they actually had a process by which I think it was 2 to 4 years after you graduated from their MBA program that you could come back for additional specializations in finance or technology or healthcare or a number of different areas that they had as part of their program for no additional cost other than books or materials. So just to add that in there.
We'll take one more thought from George.
Yeah, we've tried to implement that kind of lifelong learning concept directly with employers, whether it's a book club but things that they can immediately apply in their workplaces. And so then they're seeing the value without just concepts, because if it's just the concept approach, people just aren't interested in putting in the time or the energy.
Yeah, that makes sense. So everyone, just in the interest of time, you just know that this full export of all this data is heading to all of you that logged in to XLEAP. And if for some reason you didn't log in or don't get it, you can find Matt very easily on LinkedIn, Matt Alex, and we'll find a way to get it over to you. Because this could be, our thought today with this ThinkSpace was, how can we start the conversation, bubble up some stuff, just enough that it gets you thinking, and what of this could you take back to some of your internal working groups and discussion groups to say, hey, what of this is relevant to our school and our current situation? And could we take 1 or 2 of these things or ideas or challenges or what the future could look like and really go after it? I think that would be a really great outcome for us, knowing that you can also voice to Jeff, hey, let's do a deeper dive ThinkSpace on just the future, right? Or let's do a deeper dive ThinkSpace on some of the challenges, and we can just come back and do a deeper dive session like that thereafter. So Matt, you've got a couple of feedback questions to ask before we sign off. So let me get that to you and then you can close us out.
Yeah, well, one, I want to say this has been really good. We're at the bottom of the hour. We got 5 minutes left. This was really tremendous. I love the fact that we had all these different parties from our ecosystem coming in and having the dialogue, which I think is so needed sometimes. I think there's a big value, and I think there's a lot of things that we can do collectively. So I want to first say thank you to Jeff and the MBA Roundtable for having us and allowing us to come into your world to really showcase, our ThinkSpace concept and the concept of getting schools to rethink and reimagine. There's so many times where webinars are all about trying to sell you something. Our goal isn't to sell you something. Our goal is to get you to rethink what you do and really reimagine how you support your students, your community, and everyone else that you serve. So I'm going to throw a quick question out really quick. It's really important for us. what did you like about this ThinkSpace? It should pop up. If it hasn't, let's see if it has.
There, it's there.
Okay. What is it you liked? Really quick, I'm gonna just open it up for like 30 seconds. And the next question is, how can we improve it? Is the next question. Yeah, I like number 7. Whoever is that, I can get you a Starbucks.
Do you pay someone for that, Matt? I don't know.
I know. I gotta get Starbucks to somebody. So.
If only we had the vote up buttons there.
Oh yeah. It's good. Well, I mean, this whole ThinkSpace is exactly what it is, right? We wanted to keep it interactive. We believe this is the best platform for people to have really good dialogues. Follow us. Follow myself, Beyond, Joe, JTH, and others. We host a variety of ThinkSpaces on a variety of different topics. So we'd love for your thoughts and opinions to be there. So that's good. So thank you so much for the comments here. I'm going to ask, the question that we sometimes don't ask, and I think, how can we improve this? Our ThinkSpaces get better every time because people put some ideas in, right? Early ThinkSpaces, we talked the whole time, and some people said, you guys just need to shut up. And so we now give you time to just put your answers in. So number 1, everything is anonymous here. So usually we don't, unless you come up and say that's your answer, everything is anonymous. Okay. Breakouts. Offer incentives. All right. Drop and drag is awkward. Yeah, you know what? We should maybe show you how to use it. That's probably something we could do better.
That's right.
Danielle,
more of number 8, please.
Put number 8 in there. Was Gabrielle somewhere in the back end of this?
And I think she's been sneaking in on this. Well, I do think that I think we can do a lot of these virtual events, and what's next and how do we engage in the next steps is a challenge we're all having. So I love hearing that because as an organization, we're struggling with that as well.
Yeah, and while I'm gonna throw it over to Jeff, and I'm going to, I don't know if someone has a little noise going on. I see it. Hold on if I can mute that person really quick.
Well, no, yeah.
So why don't you go ahead and Jeff, I know we're already a minute. Go ahead and conclude it, and then take it from there.
Well, no, I just want to say thank you. It's been an experience. I've done a few of these with you on the other topics I've just joined, and it's been great. It's very helpful to hear the thoughts, and I like the diversity of the audience has been very helpful to hear students, former students, potential students saying like, why should I get an MBA? It's those questions that we need to ask, and we really need to move forward on that, and keep in touch with us as well.
You'll see that I threw up a question, and Jeff didn't ask me to do this. This is something I did this morning. Because there's a conference, we always believe conferences are good when people want to be around the topics that are there, right? So if you have ideas, I'll leave this open for the rest of the day. Go ahead and put some ideas if you want to come back. This will probably help Jeff and his team, give you guys really good content for you guys as you move forward. So I want to say thank you for letting us be a part of this. 90 minutes is a lot of time, and we hope you enjoyed it. We hope you like the ThinkSpace concept. We hope you'll follow us and do great things. Thanks, everyone.
Everybody.
Matt kind of opened this up. I said you opened it up for a T-shirt barter exchange program too.
All right, we can work out a T-shirt exchange program. So that'll be good. That'll be good.
That's an old cultural thing from a conference I used to go to in the.
Was it?
We have some really nice trendy. Because we have a brand and marketing agency inside of our firm, we have some really nice swag. I wear some really cool vests and we have green shoes. If you guys haven't seen us anywhere, our folks know who we are. People know who we are. We walk around with these green Nikes. We look like Celtic fans, but right, Peter? Peter, you saw our green sneakers.
I saw the dancing, the break dancing.
Yeah, we do breakdancing. Yeah, we're pretty innovative.
Talented. Just some talent there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thanks everyone. I leave this open as a mingle if you all want to sit around and talk a little bit, but I want to say thanks for everyone that joined. It was great. I'm going to stop the recording so that we can share that to the public. Okay?
Well, and Matt, I do need to dessert too, but thanks for all the help, and we look forward to following up with you in a little bit, okay?
Thank you. Thanks so much. All right, crew that usually hangs out, thanks for everything. It was a good session. I hope you all enjoyed it. Carol, it's good seeing you. We usually see each other on Clubhouse. Good seeing you, Carol.
Oh, yeah, this is very interesting. I'm happy to see this. I especially like the part where you get rid of faculty who are wedded to the old paradigm in order to get a new paradigm shift in there, because it's what MBA schools need.
Yeah. You know, the way I see it is if we just build around universities the right way, it'll all work out. You know, I think, you know, some people have a certain way of working and we just have to live with it. And some people may like that type of teaching. And so we have to do it. But if we put really good, different type of content and that gets absorbed, it usually will take over and run the market. So no, it's good. Hey, JTH, thanks for running the voice. Appreciate that. And Art, it's always good seeing you, buddy.
Good seeing you as well, Matt. And I was the one that put in number 7. I couldn't think of anything else. You're the only reason I come. And maybe a little bit of Keel just because he goes and gets my juices flowing.
Yeah, he gets all of us going. So it's good. It's good. All right, everyone. Thank you. Have a good one. Okay.